The storm came without warning, a ferocious symphony of wind and rain battering against the windows of my house. I was used to Midwest weather, unpredictable and wild, but this was different. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy that prickled my skin as I sat alone in my bedroom, the faint glow of my laptop screen casting long shadows on the walls. Thunder cracked overhead, and I flinched as the power flickered before plunging the house into darkness. The only light came from the lightning outside, illuminating the room in sharp, fleeting bursts. I reached for my phone, using its flashlight to navigate my way to the front of the house. My heart sank when I saw the tree. A massive oak from the yard had been ripped from the ground and now leaned precariously against the side of the house. Its branches scratched against the window like skeletal fingers, and the roof groaned under its weight. I knew I'd have to deal with the damage in the morning, but for now, there was nothing I could do. I returned to my bedroom, locking the doors as a precaution. Despite the chaos outside, the familiar comfort of my bed called to me, and I resolved to wait out the storm. As I lay there, the rhythmic pounding of the rain lulled me into a half-sleep, my mind drifting between dreams and reality. Then I heard it, a low, mechanical growl that cut through the sound of the storm. It started faintly, almost indistinguishable from the wind, but it grew louder, closer. I sat up, straining to listen. It was unmistakable now, the rumble of a chainsaw. My chest tightened as a wave of unease washed over me. Who would be operating a chainsaw in the middle of a storm? And why? I crept to the window, peering out into the darkness. The flashes of lightning revealed nothing but the fallen tree and sheets of rain. Yet the growl of the chainsaw persisted, rising and falling in the distance. My mind raced, conjuring images of scenarios I didn't want to believe. Maybe it was a neighbor clearing debris, or maybe it was something worse. Gripping my phone tightly, I moved to the living room, where I had a better view of the yard. As I approached the window, the sound abruptly stopped. The silence was deafening, amplifying my pounding heart. I stared into the void, waiting for another flash of lightning to reveal the source. When it came, my breath caught in my throat. A figure stood near the fallen tree, silhouetted against the night. They held the chainsaw at their side, the blade glinting in the brief light. The figure didn't move, didn't look around. They just stood there, as if they knew I was watching. I stumbled back, my mind screaming for me to act. I locked the front door and double-checked the windows, my hands trembling. The figure hadn't tried to approach, but the sheer presence of them was enough to terrify me. Then the chainsaw roared back to life, louder this time. I ran to the kitchen, grabbing the largest knife I could find. My phone was in my pocket, but calling for help felt impossible. The storm had knocked out the cell towers. I was on my own. The sound moved, circling the house. I could hear the crunch of footsteps in the wet grass, the growl of the chainsaw cutting through the night. Every instinct told me to hide, but something kept me rooted in place, gripping the knife with white knuckles. When the sound reached the back of the house, I sprinted to the bedroom, slamming the door shut and pushing a dresser in front of it. My breath came in shallow gasps as I crouched by the bed, the knife clutched tightly in my hands. The chainsaw stopped again, replaced by an eerie silence. The storm seemed to quiet, as if holding its breath. A loud crash shattered the stillness. I froze, realizing it had come from the back door. The intruder was inside. Tears streamed down my face as I tried to steady my breathing. I could hear heavy, deliberate footsteps in the hallway, accompanied by the faint hum of the chainsaw. They were searching, methodical, and patient. I gripped the knife tighter, my body shaking with fear and adrenaline. The footsteps stopped just outside my bedroom door. A heavy knock followed, slow and deliberate. I bit my lip to keep from screaming. The knock came again, and then the sound of the doorknob rattling. My makeshift barricade held, but I knew it wouldn't last if they truly wanted to get in. My mind raced, searching for a way out. The window. It was my only chance. Moving as quietly as I could, I crept to the window and unlatched it. The storm had calmed slightly, but the rain still poured as I climbed out, the cold air biting at my skin. I landed in the muddy grass, the knife still in my hand. I didn't look back. I ran, the wet ground slipping beneath my feet as I sprinted toward the tree line. The forest offered a slim hope of concealment, but I had no other choice. The chainsaw roared to life again, closer this time, and I pushed myself harder. ignoring the burning in my lungs. The trees closed in around me, their branches tearing at my clothes and skin. The sound of the chainsaw was erratic now, rising and falling as if the intruder was chasing me blindly. I ducked behind a large tree, my heart pounding as I struggled to catch my breath. Silence. The chainsaw had stopped again. I peered around the tree, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Lightning illuminated the forest, and for a brief moment, I saw the figure standing at the edge of the clearing, the chainsaw dangling from their hand. They turned their heads slowly, as if sensing my gaze. I pressed myself against the tree, willing myself to disappear. My mind raced with questions. Who was this person? Why were they doing this? What did they want? I didn't wait to find out. Summoning what little courage I had left, I sprinted deeper into the forest, the knife gripped tightly in my hand. The storm's remnants masked the sound of my footsteps, but every crack of a branch sent a jolt of fear through me. Eventually, I stumbled upon a small clearing where an old hunting cabin stood. Its windows were boarded up, and the door hung slightly ajar. Desperation pushed me forward. I slipped inside, closing the door as quietly as I could. The cabin smelled of damp wood and decay, but it was shelter. I barricaded the door with an old chair and crouched in the corner, my back against the wall. The knife felt heavier in my hand, and my body ached from the cold and exhaustion. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope that I'd lost the intruder. That hope shattered when the chainsaw roared back to life, its sound cutting through the night like a predator's growl. It was close. Too close. Tears streamed down my face as I gripped the knife, preparing for the worst. The sound circled the cabin, rising and falling like a macabre symphony. Then it stopped, replaced by heavy footsteps on the porch. The door rattled as the intruder tested it, and I pressed myself further into the corner, my body trembling. The door creaked open, the chair scraping against the floor as it was pushed aside. The figure stepped into the cabin, their presence filling the small space with an overwhelming sense of dread. Lightning flashed, illuminating their form for a brief moment. I could see the chainsaw in their hand, its blade glinting menacingly. They took a step forward, and I clutched the knife, ready to fight for my life. But before they could move closer, a deafening crack echoed through the cabin. The roof, weakened by the storm, collapsed under its weight, sending debris crashing down. I scrambled to my feet and bolted through the door, not daring to look back. The forest blurred around me as I ran, my legs fueled by pure adrenaline. Eventually, I emerged onto a dirt road where headlights pierced the darkness. A passing truck screeched to a halt, and the driver jumped out, his face a mix of concern and shock. I collapsed into his arms, the knife slipping from my hand as I finally allowed myself to break down. The authorities never found the intruder. The chainsaw, the figure in the storm, they vanished without a trace. To this day, I don't know who they were or why they came after me. But every time I hear the hum of a chainsaw, my chest tightens and I am back in that storm, running for my life.